Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for joining very much. We're gonna have a little bit of a different stream tonight than normally we do on Tuesday nights. Talking about something rather important that's been happening in the game recently, and I think a number of you hopefully know the story. We've put out a number of videos on it. I've covered it. Commander Plater's covered it. Obsidian Ant's covered it, and that is the recent hacking and cheating issues that have come to light that have been plaguing the game for, in reality, a very long time, if not since the beginning. This new set of hacks and cheats that's really come to the forefront here in the last several weeks were released back in July of 2018 to give a little perspective on how long these have been around. A quick history here, and Ryan from SDC, if he wants to speak on it a little bit, he definitely will in a minute. But Ryan working with, oh God, Ryan, who was it that you worked with on the stuff that when we first did it?
It was basically us internally. Tilt was one
Tilt
of the
Controls, thank you. It was Tilt
yeah,
Controls
yeah.
that I wanted to thank. Thank you. Yes, did a really deep dive on all this back in December. Reported it all to Frontier and multiple channels, and was met with the very typical that we always get. Thanks, we're looking into it. We take this seriously, but we can't say anything. Motif, right? That has become the standard, communication for them, and is becoming that much more frustrating. So, what brought us here tonight and made me kind of do this stream instead of my normal was what went down on Sunday night that Commander Plater streamed and covered, and that was a Commander Nick Naylor staging an in-game protest. And so, what Nick did was he bought a beluga. That's why we're in belugas right now, and used the hacks to make himself essentially unkillable. Blocked the mail slot in a station, I believe it was Jameson, but that could be wrong about that. And did that just kind of as a protest to piss people off, get himself reported, kind of knowing he would get banned with potentially noble goals. Commander Plater caught wind of this as it was happening. He jumped in game because he was about to stream anyway, had Nick on and did kind of a little interview, actually a long interview, it was about 45 minutes long, that's on Commander Plater's channel. So I encourage anybody to go have a read of that, go have a listen to that sometime. Tonight, we're going to talk about what happened that night, what Nick did, what we all think about it, what our position on this is. I'm going to start with a little statement that we all kind of worked on that kind of explains why Nick isn't here and isn't joining us. So let me just simply read that to everybody. As many of you know, Commander Nick Naylor staged a protest on Sunday night by using the current hacking tools that I've discussed previously to block the mail slot using an unkillable beluga. Commander Plater became involved and streamed the event, interviewing Nick at the time. Since then, I've learned, despite statements to the contrary, this was not the first time Nick used these hacks, having tested them in the past. As I and our group find the use of these hacks unacceptable in all situations, including testing that does not result in personal gain, I chose to not have Nick join us for the discussion. Nick's intent Sunday was admirable. However, we must all follow the rules set forth by Frontier at all times. There is never an excuse to cheat in any form, and the ban Nick received was deserved given his use of the hacks previously. Frontier acted appropriately here. However, we feel that this was an isolated action given the publicity that it attained. We wish Frontier to act swiftly, consistently, and most importantly, transparently in all cases against all cheating and Elite Dangerous. And so we're not going to focus too much on Nick and on the history there, right? We all feel it was a good thing that this brought this to further attention and essentially is the reason we're all sitting here. But the reality is the way that he went about it, again, hacking in any form, cheating in any form is unacceptable, especially that we know the history that this was not the first time that he had used these. So a lot of us were initially angered by Frontier's seemingly double standard at giving Nick an instant permanent ban, right? Even though the wording, which we all felt was very copy paste, was that, he was being permanently banned because of previous use. And I should have gotten the actual email to read to you guys. I'm sorry I don't. If somebody maybe has a link to it or can find a link for it, we'll get that out. But, they indicated that because of previous uses of these, well, at the time that didn't seem accurate and seemed very much like a copy paste. And now that we know that that might have been the case, right? I discussed this with Nick at length today. One of the things that Nick is going to do for us, because has been banned to solo mode only, Frontier's wording of that was that he is in a solo mode and can no longer affect other players in the game. Well, that can be read as that now that that's the case, he is completely banned to some mode where if he does participate in, say, power play or BGS tasks, that would not affect the rest of us. Well, that's kind of news to a lot of us in the sense that we've never heard of such a method. We've never known that there was such a way to do this. And so today I reached out to both Will and Paige at Frontier. Unfortunately, Will's on vacation for the week. And I did not receive a reply from Paige asking for clarification about this. If and when I get clarification, I will share that with everyone because we want to know, right? Because the fact is, if that ban to solo mode is permanent and it can no longer affect the BGS, Frontier did absolutely the right thing. And I want to make that clear that I absolutely think that they did. What I have issue with, and I think the various groups tonight are going to discuss, is what we think, where we think Frontier is failing on this issue, where the groups stand on this issue, and to show that the real goal here is to show a united front from all players of all play styles. Let me also now take a moment to discuss, which I probably should have done right at the beginning, the gentlemen that have taken their time to join me tonight from the various player groups. We've got a couple player groups that couldn't make it based on the very short notice of this, but those groups were nice enough to issue me statements that we're going to read on their behalf. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go round robin here. Let each different group introduce themselves, briefly talk about, if you guys want to briefly say what your group does, just to introduce yourself, and then read your statements. I've asked everybody to basically prepare a statement. Then we're going to have a brief kind of Q&A and discussion after that, and we're going to try to keep this relatively short, right? I've already gone 10 minutes here, but we're going to try to keep this to about a half hour or so. The groups that have joined me, they're kind of on screen right now, is Ryan and Harry Potter from SDC, Gluttony Fang from AXI, Anti-Xeno Iniative, Eliful from Canonn Research, Apostolakis is helping us moderate from our group, level 11, and then the groups that weren't here, and Siberius's name is on screen, and I might be pronouncing that wrong. He didn't know until the last minute he wasn't going to be able to make it. He's from Mobius PvP, and I also have statements from Ida. Ida is the group that does the station repairs and stuff like that. I have a statement from Ida, and I have a statement from the Fuel Rats, neither of which were able to be here tonight. So why don't we start and go round robin? I originally said alphabetical, but why don't we go in the order that things are on screen, guys? So Ryan, Harry, whichever one of you would like to start. Excuse me, I did say Mobius PvP. Forgive me. Mobius PvE. Sorry, that was absolutely a slip up. I'm glad I saw that in chat. Forgive me. Just a slip up.
No, you had it right.
It was a funny slip, wasn't it? Wasn't it, right? So why don't we start with either Harry or Ryan, whichever one of you guys would kind of like to go first. A little bit about maybe your player group and then your thoughts on this, and we'll just kind of go round robin here.
Harry.
Am I reading the Mobius thing, or am I talking about SDC here?
You're talking about SDC. Actually, yeah, Ryan, why don't you talk about SDC, and we'll let Harry read the Mobius statement.
Yeah, so everyone else kind of has prepared statements, but we don't really do prepared statements, I guess.
That's fine.
From shitposting. So I mean, basically, obviously, hacking's a big problem in Elite right now. More people are doing it than ever, given the publicity that it's had recently. And FDevs in action is slowly killing the game, specifically in PvP. The biggest impact as far as hacking goes isn't necessarily the blatant hackers that have infinite shields, infinite ammo, doing a ton of damage. Those aren't the big ones, right? You can figure those people out. You can block them. You can generally avoid them. The problem is the subtle hacks that kind of cast doubt onto any PvP interaction that you have going forward, right? That's the main harm, because someone that's just getting into PvP doesn't necessarily know what PvP level damage looks like, right? And I mean, Harry's been accused of hacking a bunch of times. I'm sure Replicant's been accused of it. I've been accused of it.
I've been accused of it
by people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
By people that don't really understand how the game works. And now, because hacking is so prevalent and nothing's been done about it for so long, it kind of it kind of devalues PvP, which is already kind of a devalued playstyle anyways. So obviously, I'm glad to see that Frontier took action in this case, even though it's not necessarily, the exact situation we really wanted to see happen. But they need to start doing more. They need to definitely be more transparent about it.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ryan. Why don't we'll just continue down the list. And Harry, I'm going to save Mobius's to the end since that's one of the longer ones, if that's okay. Gluttony.
Okay.
Yeah. Gluttony, why don't you go ahead and talk next? Just briefly who AXI is, just so everybody knows where we're coming from.
Great. Thank you, Exigius. So I am Gluttony Fang. I am the founder of the Anti-Xeno Initiative. So our group basically partakes in the Anti-Xeno content. Basically, it's mostly, pretty much completely PvE content. I would like to first touch upon a little bit from what my colleague over here just said about PvP-related issues that concerns with cheating. It's not only just concerning PvP players, this has an effect on PvE players as well. So the AXI Anti-Xeno Initiative stance on this is that we condemn the use of cheats in multiplayer games, especially in ways that affect other players. The main goal of our organization, AXI, is to help people learn and to cultivate competitive spirits that drive them to new heights of skill. Use of cheats goes against our entire philosophy and it damages the players' trust in each other's achievements in the game. It takes years to build a community based on honor, but it only takes a few seconds to destroy it completely. So we will always be on the lookout for suspicious behavior from our members, and disciplinary actions will be taken against those found in violation of our principles' integrity. And I think it's very important that I believe the AXI is in an interesting position. We take on the more, subjectively speaking, challenging part of PvE. The Thargoids are subjectively more difficult than your normal NPC. We see ourselves as a stepping stone in taking your game in elite combat-wise anyway, and shipbuilding-wise to the next level, to really understand how to build your ship, how to fight against a more difficult type of NPC. And we see that as an entryway into other content such as PvP or other interesting facets of the game that it offers. So we really believe that having this integrity, cultivating this competitive, good sportsmanship spirit is very essential to both the game and the community itself. Thank you, Exigius.
Yeah, no, that's great. Very, very well said, Gluttony. I really appreciate it. We'll keep moving along. Elful from Canonn Research. Why don't you tell us?
Well, luckily my statement kind of includes what our player group is.
Great.
A little bit.
Great.
So Canon's purpose and goal is discovery. Finding what makes this galaxy tick, and what matters to us is that we make these discoveries using the tools intended. We send out explorers, we compile endless amounts of data, we pore over scans of planets and stars, all in search of finding out more. We have members ranging from those who simply have a passion for science to some actual NASA astrophysicists, putting in a level of research and effort matching that passion and experience. Unfortunately, hacking and cheating undermines all of this. Most painful to us in particular is data mining, as it robs us of the scientific journey we crave. But we understand the pain and frustration that other forms of hacking cause our fellow pilots. Canonn takes a firm stance against cheating and hacking of any kind, and it is grounds for immediate removal from our group, and it's something we just have a zero tolerance policy towards.
Great. Thank you very much, Elify. That's perfectly said. I'm going to go ahead and read Ida's statement. And forgive me, I don't know a great way to say who Ida is other than they're a player group that's been working to repair the damaged Thargoid stations. I'm actually going to be featuring them this Friday on on Friday, so you can learn all about them then. Because this was, again, such short notice, they couldn't. But the statement they gave me, and I'm going to paraphrase a bit since I'm reading it, but it's Operation Ida has always been about one thing: fixing space stations. But the camaraderie of having a bunch of people willing to do the same crazy stuff they do and take the same risks comes a very close second. Dodgy ship builds are something of a specialty for them. Rebuys can and do happen. Modifying the game client to remove that risk cheapens their efforts on both an individual and collective basis. Cheaters have no home amongst us. Operation Ida shakes mountains, but that won't be as impressive if we're not. Wait, hold on. Sorry. But that won't be as impressive if we're gods and not mortals, implying if they're cheating to be gods. So let's see. I guess we'll move on to the ultimate irony of having Commander Harry Potter read Mobius's PvE, their statement, which is rather long. So bear with us for a second. But Harry, why don't you take at it?
I got the short end of the stick on this.
You did kind of.
Right,
You did kind of.
This is by Mobius PvE admin, so it reads. The recent mail slot actions of Commander Nick Naylor have certainly drawn much interest and public awareness to an Elite Dangerous quality of life issue. Frontier have stated on the forums and social media that they're doing what they can to combat the usage of these cheats and hacks in-game, and that we are all so fond of. The problem here is that such statements and claims do not seem to be upheld or backed up by any action, with little to no true indication or transparency in the dealings and prevention. Commander Nick's protest and action did indeed provide the community an undeniable working proof that it is too easy to use such programs to grant players a definitive unfair advantage to themselves over other players, and that they are seemingly quite simple to obtain. After this protest, he has suffered a permanent exclusion from all game modes, with no ability to affect other players from Frontier themselves. In one day, he became both a hero and a martyr for standing up for what he felt was a big deal, and it is. A recent poll of the Mobius membership has shown that the majority are under agreement that a zero-tolerance standpoint of cheats, hacks, and exploits needs to be held by Frontier and maintained for the benefit of all players. Any player found using such methods to cheat, regardless of mode, must result in Frontier taking action swiftly after investigation. There is no reason to cheat in Elite Dangerous. All Mobius pilots have been henceforth encouraged to use the internal support mechanisms of Frontier to report any similar offenses and allow Frontier to take action.
Great. Thanks, Harry. Well read, and I think an excellent statement from Mobius PvE. Right. I'm going to end with the Fuel Rat statement. My kind of little bit of parting comments, and then I'm going to turn it over to our group here. I haven't been watching chat too much. If you see questions in chat, or if anybody does that we haven't covered, please throw those out. So the Fuel Rat statement is simply that the Fuel Rats chose not to issue a specific statement, but they did make it very clear that they do not condone cheating or violation of Frontier's terms of service, and referred me to their full terms of service. So the Fuel Rats, and I'll paste this in now, and another thing that all of the statements that we just read, I'm going to put together they're in a document now, but I'm going to put together in a document that will be linked in this video's description that will stay up after the fact. And I'm going to also link it onto my community page such that those statements are all in one place, very clear and very easy to read. And that really gets to the goal of what I wanted to achieve tonight, which is that regardless of play style, regardless of how you play the game, it doesn't matter if you're a PvEer, an explorer, a griefer, or a care bear. We all care so much about this issue, and all universally want Frontier to care as much too, right? And we feel like, again, I think they acted very appropriately with Nick's ban. I think that that's exactly what should have happened. But I think that's what should happen to everyone when we're talking about these hacks specifically, right? We're not talking about any other issue, but you're actively downloading a client that you are installing, opening, and clicking, give me infinite shields. There should be no second chance for that. That should be an absolute, in my opinion, and we can discuss this in a minute, an absolute immediate permanent ban. Right? You didn't accidentally do these things, right? Testing this, regardless if it's for your personal gain or not. You were in just solo mode, flying around, doing nothing. You didn't cash in a single bounty. It doesn't matter, right? That is no excuse for this, nor is the comment I have unfortunately seen on my video a few times of, oh, well, the grind is so terrible in Elite, I would happily cheat if I could to get around that. Again, you don't get to make the rules. If you don't like the grind, watch my channel and learn how to grind efficiently. If you don't like the grind, don't do it, right? None of these are reasons to skirt the rules. None of us can do that because of the incredible uncertainty it brings to every aspect of the game. Right? To those that might say, well, I just play in solo mode. Well, okay, what if I go to a system, I cheat so that I can kill system authority without impunity, and now I push that system into lockdown state and you can't use the market or outfitting or the shipyard, Is that now okay? Of course it's not. Right? So the impact of these, while they are more focused on some community groups, we've already talked about the PvP community, they absolutely impact everyone. Okay, so that's the goal here. Look, if some of you haven't picked up on the kind of irony or extremeness of having what are maybe regarded as some of the biggest griefers in the game and what are regarded as some of the biggest care bears in the game, all here in one group with the same statement. Right, and that's our goal. And with that, let me toss it to the group. Who would like to jump in with anything? Did we?
I'm going to jump in with
please.
some comments from that I've read just
Please.
overall in letting our viewers, in the chat from YouTube and from Twitch, just to kind of summarize a little bit, and then I'll hand it off.
Great.
The overall, responses that no cheating, no cheating. Some of our comments have pointed out that other games have handled cheating much better. There's a couple comments that I think are important. 5 years later and they haven't fixed combat logging. I highly doubt they will ever fix the hacking. They'll make it more difficult to get away with it, but they'll never completely fix it. I think this is kind of illustrating sort of all of our feelings that FDev doesn't at least communicate what they're doing to fix things.
Apostle, speak up.
The consequences of cheating in environment is great for players dedicated, and they have achievements judged and minimized under cheating suspiciously. One other one here that I like is if there's no real consequences that are communicated, then basically how do we know what's going on from FDev? So, and I think that kind of summarizes a lot of what this is the root of the problem. There's no transparency, and we don't really see people getting punished. So when something like this happens, like on Sunday, we're going to get big responses, and I think we're looking forward to more. I think the community is looking forward to more communication from FDev on what actually happens to people getting caught. And I'll hand it off from there.
Yeah.
One question I do want to address that's in the chat is someone asked, they're on PS4, does this affect them? The short answer is yes. You can't get directly affected by these cheats. You're not going to come into Jameson and see a beluga, just chilling in the mail slot, tanking the station. But there are other people who I've seen on Sunday as well, who accidentally came into open, who would normally play in solo, who are running cheats. And even though you're on PS4 or on Xbox, the BGS is shared. The power play system is shared. If they cheat those systems from the PC, you can't do anything about it. That's because right. you're on a complete different platform. But them cheating on PC will affect you because they cheat those systems.
I'm just going to kind of second what Harry said because I just saw a comment to that and I've seen this comment several times. The myth that I only play in solo so I don't care is exactly that. I just gave the perfect example. I cheat in solo mode on PC. I go to a system, I build an unkillable ship, and I slay system authority constantly. And guess what? I push that system into lockdown state, and no one, regardless of platform or play mode, can use the market, can use outfitting, can use station services because I have cheated. Right? So as Harry said, are you going to run into a cheater shooting at you with unkillable shields? No. Right? But can a cheater affect all game modes and all of us? Yes, absolutely. Right? Ryan, I know we were chatting quite a bit before things and you had some good thoughts. Anything else you wanted to share?
Yeah. I mean, so my thoughts are kind of along, the protest specifically because I've spoken at length about cheating in the last couple of weeks.
As
obviously.
have we all. Yeah.
So my position is, while I like that people are kind of energized about cheating in the game, I very much wish that the example had been made in a different way, because my big fear now is that. So Nick uses the hacks, gets interviewed on stream, brings a bunch of publicity to it, and now he has been permanently banned for first offense, which is what we always wanted, right? We want people to be banned for first offense. We don't truly know if it was the first offense, but the assumption is that he probably didn't get popped before, or else if he had gotten popped before, he probably wouldn't have done it, right? My worry is that now FDev will point to this as an example of, hey guys, we fixed the problem. He hacked, An hour later, he ate a permaban.
And here's the example.
Right. First offense. Here's the example. We're doing something about it now. Right. When they actually aren't. Right. It was the same situation for years, almost 5 years, for combat logging, where if everyone remembers, I know Harry, you remember, I think it was Zach, or I think it was Zach that posted the statement on the forum saying combat logging is a term of service violation, and then nothing happened for 5 years. No one ever got. No
It was actually
trouble
Sandy.
for it.
I think it was Sandy that
Sandy,
posted that. Yeah.
It was one of those.
Yeah. It was Sandra. But
And so it's. I feel like this is kind of in that same position. Combat logging has been fixed for the most part. It's not a proactive fix. It's a reactive fix. But like that kind of stuff, that's the path that I see this going down, where FDev says, "Hey, we banned this guy, right? We took care of it." And they didn't actually take care of it because the hacks still exist. It's just that people are just not being as overt with it. So that's my main concern with this.
Sure.
Although I very much appreciate the sacrifice of the account, because it wasn't an alt, that was his main.
Yeah, with a couple thousand hours.
There's a lot of work lost there.
Yeah. There's one thing I also, in thinking of, that I also want to make clear, that I didn't read the comment from whoever made it, but I saw somebody type in the words "devil's advocate," and there's something I also was thinking about as we were saying this. I don't want people to, and specifically if anybody at Frontier is listening to this, I don't want them to feel like we're putting them in a no-win situation, right? Because they did act correctly here, right? And to Ryan's point, it's easy to point to this as an example. So when it comes down to it, I think there's a few things that we're looking for. And for me, the primary thing that you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that I hear from all of us is transparency. We all understand the kind of police investigation. We can't comment on ongoing investigations comment, right? But it's the absolute that's the only comment that we've gotten as a community about this giant issue, right? Where you see other communities that have these types of problems. I'm going to point to the recent, if I'm right about this, Apex Legend ban of something like 350,000 players that was met by the community with "thank you, that's fantastic." Right. And so it's that sort of transparency. If Frontier issued a statement that said, "Hey, we ban, here's our policy. On the first offense, you get this. On the second offense, you get this. The third offense, you get this. And to date, we have banned X number of players. To the last month, we have banned X number of players." Right. That's the sort of information that when we say we want we want more transparency, we don't want to know specifically Commander X was banned for Y. Right. That's too little minutia. Of course, we don't expect that, right? We don't expect that I filed a cheating protest on one dude and that I'm specifically going to hear back about that one thing. But what we want to hear back is the broader, here is exactly what our policy is, right? Here is exactly the number of times we have taken action, right? Because we do understand the technical issues here and the technical issue of divulging too much information to make the hacks easier or harder to detect. But at the end of the day, that excuse it's lost its credibility, right? That is not what the community needs right now. What we need are firm, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to share this information with you guys. We absolutely take this so seriously that in the last month we've banned X players. Now, I think the skeptic in me, and I'm guessing everyone would agree, is part of the reason we don't get that number is because that number is probably laughably low. I would like to be proven wrong. Right? I would love to hear that, oh my God, really, they've banned 100 players or 1,000 players? I'd love to hear that. Or I'd love to hear we've gotten 10,000 reports and we've banned 99 or 900 or 9,000 players. That'd be great to know too, right? But it's the absolute silence that is deafening here.
And see, to kind of augment that point, if they came out today and said how many people they banned, I don't know that I would believe it necessarily.
And that's,
right?
But again, being clear, to devil's advocate that, Ryan, I don't want to feel like we're putting them in a no-win situation. Because if we say that, then it's, oh, well, okay, but if we tell you, you're still not going to believe us. So I'm not going to go that far. I understand the skepticism, right? And believe me, to a large degree, I share it. But I want to be fair that we're giving Frontier, in my opinion, there's two ways to deal with this. That's what I said in my video. There's a technical response that none of us sitting here talking right now know the code. Some of us are technical. Some of us are developers. Some of us understand the way these things can be addressed, but we don't know the code. We don't know the technical challenges they face. That's irrelevant to the fact that they must solve this technical challenge. All right. As I kind of jokingly said in my video, adding deep core mining was a technical challenge, and they did that, and they did it really well. Okay. The second is the policy and how they respond to it. And that's what we're all basically discussing here, right? I do absolutely think Frontier can win this. And I don't want to set them up to a position where they cannot and I'm not calling you out, Ryan, but by saying, well, even if they did, I wouldn't believe them. Right. It is a first step. It would potentially be hard to believe depending on what those numbers were, but it would be a stepping stone. Right. If I'm Frontier, immediately I start releasing a monthly report. Right, that's every month.
To mirror on that thought,
Please,
mirror on my colleague's thought, it's so usually other games handle these kind of cheat banning using waves, ban waves, as we have heard. It's probably a common term at this point, and that mirrors Frontier's stance of, oh, we do not want to be completely transparent because that way we'll reveal the tools we're using to detect the cheats, and that will give the cheaters and the hack creators a easier way to get around a potential fix. So a good way to play around that would be saying using the, well, I guess right now industry standard of ban waves. You ban people in waves, so you hit them once, you wait like a few months, you hit them again, and that way they can release information in these waves, and it would be a consistent report that people can point to and say, okay, during this wave, these many people got banned. This is the next wave, and this is how many people got banned during that wave. I think that will facilitate some kind of at least convincing argument that, okay, Frontier does care. It's just they need to do it in waves because they don't want people to just figure out how to get around it right away.
And that's a smart way to do things, right? That's the way that Valve does it with CS:GO. That's the way that most companies do that, right? Unless it's something that's already been detected, then they'll ban them like usually right off the bat. But the issue that I have, and again, not to be super negative here, but I've been down this road before, right? How many times, and PvPers know this because we've had to deal with FDev's inaction on many different things in the past. The heat meta, where heat weapons would basically insta-kill your ship. Healing,
yeah.
Phasing, permanent premium ammo. Heat again, and then heat again, right? So there were entire years in PvP where there were weapons that were borderline cheating, right? Like it's allowed inside the game cheating, so not reportable necessarily. But the problem is, my personal belief is that they don't care enough because their player base doesn't care enough. Right.
I think you have a very good point there, Ryan.
Yeah.
And to add on that, it's not only just the competitive scene or the PvP scene of Elite Dangerous. This issue affects the reach of this issue is very broad and very wide. It's if you are competitive on the leaderboard, if you are not competitive and you just say play in solo or play in private, and if you do use one of these cheats, you definitely will affect someone else's experience due to the very nature of Elite as a game. Background simulation. If you, as many times that we have pointed out as the example of putting a system into lockdown, you don't know if that system is about to go into about to do a re-election. You don't know if that system is trying to expand, and you just utilize your hack because you feel like you are not affecting anyone, when in reality, this is a universe. This is supposed to be a living and breathing universe with systems in place that are supposed to detect the flux you put into it. And if you utilize cheat, how are we supposed to turn to any commanders that are playing legitimately and say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. Sorry, you're just out of luck.
Well, and to be clear, to echo a little bit of that gluttony, there's two things I want to say, Ryan, and let you get back to it. And then we'll kind of go, I wanted to go then after that around if anybody has kind of closing statements, and then I'm going to keep this brief, as we said. But first of all, number one, to Gluttony's point, this is not a single player game ever. This is not, you can play this game without other humans, but it is not a single player game. Everything that happens, if you sell paintite at a station, that has an impact. maybe very small, but it has an impact, right? Secondly, I saw a comment that I thought was interesting. Somebody said, and forgive me, it scrolled by, so I didn't see who it was. But the comment was essentially, FDev is not the bad guys here. They're victims like we are. And, there's a little bit of truth to that, right? In that certainly they are a victim of the people that are creating these hacks and perpetrating these hacks, right? But the difference between them and us is we're trying to do something about it. That's the difference, right? And I want to be fair to Frontier because clearly they acted in this case, and I've seen them act in other cases, right? But they've lost so much trust with this. To Ryan's point, even if they shared numbers with us, I wouldn't believe them, right? They've got to regain that trust, and right now, in my strong belief, the only way to do that is through very open, very transparent, and very honest communication. And historically, not only have we not gotten communication very well from Frontier, we certainly haven't gotten that level of of open and transparent communication, right? As somebody just said, Punchbag, thank you. We paid for the game, right? Like it is Frontier's job to address this, not ours, right? And
exactly.
With that, yeah,
and like I think that the widespread nature of cheating in Elite is kind of hidden by the structure of the game, right? If someone cheats
right.
in PUBG or in Apex, it's very apparent, right? Because the whole focus of PUBG and Apex is to fight other people, right? You're trying to survive until the end, and someone that's cheating is going to survive until the end, which means that everyone on that server, everyone in that match with them, will potentially run into that person at some point, right? Will have their game directly impacted, and it will be very apparent when it happens. In Elite, most players, I'd be willing to say basically anyone that doesn't PvP will probably never run into a hacker, right? Never run into a hacker directly, but you'll be constantly encountering the effects of the hacking, right? So BGS states being a little bit different. If you do power play might be a little harder or a little easier depending on which side they're on, right?
Yeah.
And so things like that, I think that kind of contributes to FDev's lack of action, because it's just not something that has the visibility that it does in other games. So why invest the resources when the only people that care are people that that have a lack of sympathy in the player base, right, in the form of PvPers, or they play the game in a way that most people just don't, which would be like hardcore BGS, hardcore power players, right? Most people just kind of jump around and do whatever it is that they feel like doing when they feel like doing it, and they don't necessarily get into those either like PvEVP, which is what BGS and power play is, or direct PvP, right? Most people just never do that.
Yep. And with that, I think, as I said before, I don't want us to go on and on kind of beating up the same points, which I don't think we've done. If anybody else, if any of the rest of you guys, like Eli, you've been a little quieter than your statement. If you have anything to add, please do. If anybody else does, now's the time. Otherwise, I'm gonna wrap this up.
I mean, it's there's not a whole lot for me to add. For Canonn, the biggest pain point for us isn't necessarily hacking, but data mining, which is something that the community has a more mixed opinion on. Although it is something that, if you even mention it on our Discord, it gets you a lot of really nasty looks. But hacking still affects us. It affects everyone. It's that mentality that it's just okay to go in and break the game. Even if you're, an explorer trying to go out and find new ruins, just that sort of mentality being encouraged will eventually affect you if it's allowed to just take root.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people, maybe I'll end here. I've heard a lot of people say, this is going to kill the game, or this is killing the game. And I'm not going to go that far. In the 3 years I've been in Elite, the year I've been making videos, I've heard that proclaimed a dozen times, right? That this event or this issue or this thing is going to kill it, right? And I don't believe that. But this does have the potential of severely impacting the game in such a significantly negative way that a large part of the community that I mean, look, you're listening to us talk right now because we all genuinely love this game. Right? If we didn't, I wouldn't have spent all day having conversations with people about this, setting this up, and us having this conversation, right? We all care about it, and that's why we're here. And we don't want to see the game become, a true cesspool of cheating like so many other, specifically first-person shooters have turned into, right? There's no reason for it. It can be addressed so easily, and the policy of, if you are caught, you are gone, would change the mind, I think, pretty quickly of those people that have the mindset of, oh, well, I'm just in solo mode. I'm just going to test this for myself all by myself, right? If there's then the real chance that you're going to get caught, and if you get caught, you are going to be permanently banned, that's what we need as a first step outside of the technical steps. Right. So with that, if there's not anything else burning that we didn't...
There's one comment.
Please,
that's
Buster.
kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It says, hi, guys. I have to ask you something. What about all those people that cheated a while back, exploiting engineers that ended up with God modules?
I love this one.
Remember back then?
That's a great one to cover.
I can address this
Please,
one.
Harry.
Yeah.
Please, Harry.
This one's easy to address. So the difference is that's an exploit, not a cheat. This is outright hacking, as in you cannot be killed. The 5-to-1 exploit that you guys are referring to, which I did use and I did get punished for, that only did allow you to get modules within the realm of possibility. So all we ended up doing in that was acquiring modules that any other player could get their hands on, should they roll enough. And by God, we did roll a hell of a lot. And when they did eventually take action on anyone that had used it, regardless of how many times you had used it, they removed all of your engineering mod. Well, I say all of them because they left my heat cannons. I didn't like heat cannons either. They're fixed as well, which is a real pain in the ass. They did purge people's modules, so people did lose the stuff they had got. Their ill-gotten gains were taken away from them. And what ended up happening with that, in my case anyway, is I ended up going rolling thousands and thousands of times and ended up with stuff that was better than what I had before. So Frontier did me a favor in the end, but those that did use that exploit did get punished for it, did lose their modules so that it couldn't affect anyone else in the game. Any modules you see in the game now, they will not be those 5-to-1 cheated modules.
And, and being clear, because I've seen a couple comments about what Harry's talking about, right? Absolutely, you should have suffered those consequences. And I don't think you argue that, Harry. And I'll be blunt, absolutely that was wrong, right? Using exploits is wrong. I'll give another example. There's a technique right now, and I don't even really want to mention it because I don't want to bring publicity to it, but called slip mining. It is absolutely an exploit. Now, there is a difference, but being blunt, only Frontier can define something as this is wrong. If you do it, you will suffer consequences. With this method I'm talking about right now, slip mining, they have not done that yet. However, it is so clearly an exploit of the game. That is very different, as Harry said, and I'm not defending Harry, to be clear, by the way, because I do think what he did was wrong. But that's a very different cry from saying, I'm going to download this application, install it, and run it. Click a button that says, give me full shields, give me infinite weapons, give me infinite jump range, right? Those are they in the same ballpark? Yes. Are they the same thing and should suffer the same consequences? In my opinion, no, right? But Apostle, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that is important to address.
Well, the good thing.
No, please go.
I would like to add.
Yeah, go right ahead.
One good thing of the 5-to-1 exploit that did come out of that, there was lots and lots of groups using it, and one thing it did show to Frontier,
a lot of groups, to be clear. Yeah.
Engineers, it showed Frontier that engineers was in a really bad place, and I think they took that feedback on board. Just the sheer number of people that were using it, of course they wiped everyone's modules. There were just absolutely massive amounts of players starting from stock ships. You log in, your ship is now stock. Yep. I'm in Maya, I can't jump anywhere. I'm absolutely screwed. It took me half an hour to get back to the bubble.
Sure.
But what it showed Frontier was that engineers was in such a bad place that they needed to fix it. And now we've got the engineer system we have now. So in a roundabout way, the exploit was both a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, people didn't suffer from it like they've got with the cheats now, like where it's just outright unfair to run cheats against someone. the stuff people could get was possible. You could get this stuff. People did have better modules than what we were getting. I mean, I remember seeing a guy in Mobius who had the best D-rated drives I'd ever seen in the game.
Oh
and
my god.
yeah, it was unfortunate that he put them on bloody D-rated drives. Put those
Yep.
on A-rated, you've got
you
the
wouldn't
best
have
FPL
noticed.
drives in the game.
Yeah.
And to
It was
move
like-
the
No,
conversation,
he put
right? And to move
It
the
was like, so his drives, just for reference, I think he had 142s
Okay.
with
No, they
like
were-
a
they were-
really good
they were 145 almost. They
Yeah.
were almost as good as what you
Mhm.
can get now. They were insane.
Sure.
and to
ridiculous.
move the conversation from
Gluttony,
the past
please.
into the present
Please.
and the future. Right. Right. So to move the conversation from the past to the present and the future, we don't want to witness, or rather have to take matter to the extreme. Let it be an exploit, let it be actually using hacking and cheating that have severe consequences that pretty much has no way that we can take care on our own. We don't want to see these matters taken to the extreme. We don't want to see something as crazy as a beluga sitting in in a mouse slot and just indestructible. We don't want to see that it has to get to such a severe level for Frontier to take action against them. We want them to be more proactive. We want them to be more transparent in their way of handling their game and retaining the integrity that it's supposed to have. And I think that's a very important point.
I absolutely, and in fact, I think that's a great place for us to wrap up. Gluttony, thank you for saying that so eloquently. We want Frontier to act. We want them to be transparent. We want them to share with us and communicate with us. That's what we're looking for. Thank you very much to everybody that participated in helping me put this together tonight. I wouldn't have been able to have this group if we again didn't all love the game so much. So big thanks to Ryan and Harry from SDC, to Gluttony from AXI, to Eliful. Am I getting your damn name right, Eliful?
Close enough.
Okay, Eliful.
Just call me Eli.
Okay, so Eli from Canonn, and then the guys that that didn't make it tonight, the reps from IDA that I worked with, the guys from the Fuel Rats, and Cerberus from Mobius PvE. Big thanks to them. Again, I'm going to have IDA on stream this Friday if you want to come learn all about them. And since this was a little different than we normally do on Tuesday nights, where we normally end with CQC, we're going to wind up doing that here in a little bit. If you guys would like to come join the conversation, we have a huge group in Discord right now. I'm going to ask that once we let everybody unmute, that we try to be very respectful and not talk over each other, because it's going to be a nightmare in a second. But if you guys would like to come out, hang out, would like to chat, please do. Like I said, we're definitely going to play some PvP here in a little bit. But again, thanks to everybody for joining, and I will hopefully see you guys very soon.